Welcome back to Travolting Presents Easy Ryders. Hosted by Jeff Sweeney and Stuart Elmore. Covering Heathers. With special guest, Rebecca Sweeney.
Here's the thing about podcasts, is that they're a manipulation of the corporate ladder structure.
Society, man.
It's all part of the society that's trying to keep you down. Listen and constantly having thoughts pumped in your ears, right from the teat of the presidency all the way down to you. It's all part of the system, man.
Get a load of this society.
Greetings and salutations.
Greetings and salutations.
What if you did this voice?
What if I
Not
did the
bad.
whole episode?
No.
He does kind of have like a Heath Ledger Joker voice.
A little bit before the Heath Ledger Joker voice became the Heath Ledger Joker voice. Yeah, it's very like slimy.
The thing that sucks is that is just how Christian Slater sounds.
Because he's not doing a bit.
He just kind of talks. Like, even if you watch him in other movies, like, "Hey, I'm here. Broken Arrows, the movie we're talking about." Oh, God.
Is that the last time you guys covered?
Is that
That was our
Christian
Slater?
Slater thing?
That was our
It
last
was.
Christian.
There was no Fraser Slater crossover.
No,
No.
Free Slate.
Free Slate.
He was
Clean slate.
I think a lot about him
Christian
in
slate.
Interview with the Vampire, where he's the one interviewing the vampire.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, all right, Brad, how do you feel about your time as a
he is in that
vampire?
movie.
And then Brad Pitt is just like, all right, well, I was a vampire about 50 years ago. Me and Tom Cruise, we were in New Orleans.
I do not think that's his voice in that movie.
Is that how Brad Pitt talks?
I can't remember how he
Yeah.
talks in that movie.
Yeah, and you said the title wrong too, so I wouldn't expect you to know how Brad Pitt,
Was it Interview with the Vampire?
a vampire.
With
yeah.
a vampire, because there are plenty.
There are plenty of vampires.
We cannot singularize the vampires.
A vampire. Because there's the vampire.
Yeah, you should maybe search the Google next time.
Nosferatu. Drop the. It's cleaner.
Have you seen Dracula Untold?
I have a soft spot for that movie. I think it's.
It's the epilogue scene.
Hold
for
up,
me.
we're not talking about Heathers. We're not talking about Heathers. We're talking about my 2-day stint with Luke Evans.
I want to talk about my 2-day stint with who's that actor that
Charles
also
Dance.
plays Tywin? Oh, Charles
yeah,
Dance.
Charles Dance.
Oh my god, fucking love.
Remember
Charles
when
Dance.
Charles Dance was in God? I'm not going to get into it. I cannot get into talking about Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Now I'm not
1
sure.
minute into our
Oh,
others
we were
episode.
talking about vampires. I'm like, wait, why did Dracula Untold come up? Oh, right. Yeah.
That door just swung open, and it just kind of like freaked me out for a minute.
It's
I'm like,
Chris Dance.
Yeah. Oh my lord. Yeah, we're here to talk about Heathers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Heathers.
Possibly my favorite movie from '88, and it's just sliding in after Stop Making Sense, which I think was '87.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I had this thought through the whole time. I'm like, I think this might be my favorite movie from this year. But if Stop Making Sense is the same year, then it's a very crucial.
Yeah, this movie
place.
has the weird thing where it was released to festivals in '88 and then came out in '89.
Oh.
So it's a you can technically place it whichever year. Like, legally, it released in 1989, even though it's listed as a 1988 movie. Whoa.
Whoa.
Some big truck.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta get my big truck.
Big lifted truck.
You know what's
in
interesting,
the alley.
Jeff?
Yes.
Is 2 episodes ago we just covered Beetlejuice,
Yes.
and we talked about how that became a musical.
Yes.
This also became a
Yes.
musical too.
Ah.
If you discard 1969, which, by the way, thank you for listening last week to our episode of 1969. We hope you enjoyed it.
Origins of RDJ and Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah.
No way.
Hope you enjoyed that episode.
I don't listen. Apparently.
Neither do I.
But
Actually, I do. Very
it-
sad.
taking this movie and Beetlejuice into comparison, it is funny how many similarities they do possess.
Yeah.
They're both kind of outsider movies.
Yeah.
In both of them, Winona writes a suicide note.
Yep.
Oh.
Otho is in both of them, which was quite a surprise to me watching Heathers.
Yep. Glenn Shaddix.
And then the writer of this movie, Daniel Waters, goes on to work with Tim Burton after this. So there's a lot of weird crossover between this and Beetlejuice specifically.
Yeah.
Winona's just bringing them all together.
Yeah, she brings the house together.
Yeah. Yeah. And So, because what's interesting though is like this movie came out in festivals in '88, officially released in '89, meaning it would be filmed right around a similar time frame as Beetlejuice was. My contention would be then is that this isn't a reaction to Beetlejuice.
Well, this was filmed in early 1988.
And Beetlejuice came out in April of '88.
So this actually starts filming exactly when Beetlejuice comes out.
Again, to the point, it's not a reaction to Beetlejuice.
Yeah. It's just a continuation of it.
Yeah. Which is an interesting little thing that you have these. I mean, we talked about these sort of instances happening a lot of times where it's like you feel like, oh, of course her next movie would be Heathers. It makes sense with Beetlejuice. It's like, well, actually, I was already slated to do this movie. Like,
I think her characters couldn't be more different between Heathers and Beetlejuice, though. You know, it's both are dark comedies, so I think that's where the alignment is. But Winona is playing very different.
Yes.
I think of that to her credit too.
Totally.
Because we were just like, as we said, and even not just Beetlejuice, but also in 1969. Because I think we said this in 1969 too, is you can definitely see Winona building her confidence as an actor, and I feel like she has that going for her in this movie as well, where she feels very confident about the role she's playing, and it's a testament that she maintains that confidence, but with the versatility to like. Play someone different.
And I mean, how old would she be at this time?
She was 16 when she made this.
What?
And so when she's 16 when she makes this, and the story is that she had done the run of Lucas, Square Dance, Beetlejuice, 1969. Yeah. And then she's very interested. She really wants to be taken seriously as an actress. Yeah. Like she doesn't want to keep doing, teen love interest, teen movies, John Hughes style movies. Yeah. She's very opposed to getting kind of pigeonholed into that. Yeah. And Beetlejuice, while it's a role that she really liked and was her star-making turn, it's still kind of she's playing the kid in that movie.
Yeah.
She wants to,
I mean, she is a kid.
Yeah. But she wants to do something more dramatically rich.
Sure.
So she gets the script. It just, actors get a lot of scripts just sent to them. And they read through them, and if they're interested, they'll let their agent know. But she gets the script, and she describes it as one of the best pieces of literature I had ever read. She was obsessed with it. Yes. She was obsessed with the script. I'll sidebar about the script real quick. It's written by Daniel Waters, who is notoriously... This is his first script. And the story is notoriously... He writes this script. It kind of pops off, but this movie gets a lot of criticism because of its subject matter from like a more like conservative film sphere. And so, but it is, a successful script. And so he gets a few different projects off of it, including The Adventures of Ford Fairlane and Hudson Hawk, which he just kind of like finishes up someone else's script. And then Tim Burton, who had worked with Winona on Beetlejuice, is obsessed with the Heather script as well, and asks him to rewrite or to write his sequel to Batman Returns. Yeah. So Daniel Waters writes Batman Returns. Batman Returns comes out. Parents protest the movie.
Part of me thinks this writer's onto something.
The parents hate Batman Returns because it's so dark, it's so sexual. That movie's basically about three people who put on crazy leather costumes and fight each other because they're frustrated. It is so
horny.
It is so crazy. Yeah. The best part is when Christopher Walken leans into the penguin and goes, "Unlimited poontang."
Only, what's the writer's name again?
Daniel Waters.
Yeah, only Daniel Waters can write a line like that, or "fuck me gently with a chainsaw."
Yeah.
But he fuck me gently with a chainsaw. But after Batman Returns, the protest, they're not really interested in working with him anymore. Warner Brothers isn't. He got a Razzie Award for the Hudson Hawk screenplay. And then he basically becomes persona non grata in Hollywood. No one wants to work with him.
That's a shame.
Because of how angry fans were for these movies. He has done a few random movies that no one's ever heard of, like Happy Campers and Sex and Death 101.
Happy Campers, Sex and Death 101.
Happy Campers sounds familiar, but I could be thinking of Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah. Happy Campers, I don't think a single person has seen.
Okay, so
we will be talking about Sex and Death 101 on this podcast.
We will?
Yeah, so this is not the last time we're talking about Daniel Waters.
Okay.
But he never does anything of note again.
That's a shame.
After Batman Returns.
Wow.
He is scripted because Warner Bros. Is very hot on Batman Returns before they release it.
Mm-hmm.
He is hired to write the script to a Catwoman spinoff, which the script sounds insane. It's about Catwoman after the events of Batman Returns, and she goes to essentially Las Vegas, but it's run by superheroes. And she basically has to kind of kill and sleep her way through a city of like Supermans.
Oh my
Kill
God.
and sleep her way through?
Yes. Like seduce and kill most of them.
Oh.
Okay. Seduce is different
Yeah.
than
Was it-
sleep.
yeah, like more femme fatale
Yes.
vibes.
Was it still?
It would be still Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh.
Warner Brothers
Oh,
looks at the script and says, "We cannot make this movie."
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Come on.
And that is the end of the Daniel Waters experiment. They end up making a Catwoman movie. I think he gets some like special thanks credit maybe on Catwoman.
The Halle Berry?
The Halle Berry movie. They might use some elements of his script.
He
but-
might have been just like, no, thank you.
You know, he would write the line, "You know what happens to frogs when they're struck by lightning." That is honestly kind of like his... but the thing is that I don't think that was written ironically.
Mhm.
Daniel Waters has so much irony, and it comes down to how the lines are even performed.
Mhm.
Like, oh man, like, why can't I think of... Oh, Heather. Wow, could I really not think of her name? And the movie's named
Veronica?
Heather. No, but the like...
Heather number 1, 2,
yeah,
or
the
3.
first, yeah, where it's just like a lot of the line deliveries are just like
Mm-hmm.
very like almost poorly recited, but it's like kind of the joke.
Yeah. The joke
I
is
don't know how to explain that.
What's like how obvious the facade is to everything. And
Yeah.
how fake the environment is in relation to these characters.
And that's
God damn, Heather, what's your damage? Like, like
So-
you can't really say that with an authentic kind of performance. Like, it's ridiculous, you know?
Mhm.
it's interesting how, like, with this movie coming out, getting a lot of backlash and poor reception from that kind of audience, when a few years earlier there was a movie exactly the exact same premise, Massacre at Central High, that was verbatim like the same. It's a movie came out in 1976, directed by Renee Dalder, who I don't think is known for much. Written and directed.
I've never heard of this.
It didn't like get very good reviews, and it didn't get very widely seen, so it kind of flew under the radar. But it was interesting that once Heathers came out, that there were a lot of people who were like, "Oh, it's basically that one movie that came out in '76 that nobody saw, Massacre at Central High," but verbatim the exact same premise.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
Have you seen this movie?
nope.
Oh, you just know it's kind of
Nope,
part of the
I
conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if you read the synopsis of it, it's like the exact same thing. Like somebody, it doesn't take the stance of somebody. It's as if Christian Slater's the main character rather than Veronica, Winona Ryder.
Oh.
Is like transferred from school, kind of a recluse, gets bullied a lot, loses his shit, and decides to kill people.
This movie's kind of an inversion of that
Yeah,
idea.
a little bit of inversion.
It's something of a satire on the JD character.
Yeah.
So the story of how this movie gets made is Daniel Waters is lurking in a video store at the time. He comes from the same kind of like background as like Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, where they were just movie fans who worked in a video store and decided, I want to write a screenplay.
Yeah.
So he writes the screenplay, and he's desperately trying to get it to Stanley Kubrick. He's like, I want Stanley Kubrick to make this movie. This guy who works at a video store. And so he's desperately trying to get to him. Stanley Kubrick has no interest in meeting with this guy. He cannot get a hold of him.
What was
Yeah.
Kubrick doing in 88?
He would have just come out with Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, okay.
To the extent that the opening cafeteria scene of this movie was written as an homage to the barracks sequence in Full Metal Jacket.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kubrick on the brain.
He had Kubrick on the brain, but he's trying to get Kubrick's attention, can't get it. And so he does come across this guy, Michael Lemmon, who does direct this movie. Michael Lemmon, who this is also his first movie.
Wow.
I don't quite know where he comes. Okay, he worked at American Zoetrope, which is Francis Ford Coppola's company.
Oh, yeah.
He started there answering phones, and then slowly started working his way up the corporate ladder there while making short films. And then eventually, after having something of a base, goes on to gets his first screenplay. We've talked about him before.
I was about to say, I just
because he
saw
directed
it.
Airheads.
He directed Airheads. What a weird movie to be doing soon after this one.
He's one of those weird careers where he doesn't this is his biggest movie, and he doesn't really do, aside from Airheads, he doesn't really do anything of note after
Does
this.
a lot of TV later.
This movie's one of those happy accidents where all these stars just aligned to make this specific movie at this specific time.
Yeah.
And then for the most part, except for Winona, no one really goes off of this movie to further great success. It's like an accidental masterpiece.
Yeah, right. I mean, this movie is pouring out that vibe. It's an accidental masterpiece.
But he and Michael Lemmon agree to make the movie.
Mm-hmm.
They start looking at, casting. They're looking at the usual roster that we've talked about with the previous tests. They'll get Jennifer Connelly, audition her.
Mm-hmm.
But Winona is very insistent that she wants to be in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because she gets the script. She is obsessed with the script. Really just puts herself into these auditions. Her parents are desperately trying to convince her not to make this movie.
Yeah, I would have a hard time with this.
Yeah.
As a parent, I think.
Her parents do not do this movie. Your career will end with this movie. You will never work again. This is not a good project to attach yourself to.
Which they may have, in all intents and purposes, could have been right. Could have been very right.
But who convinces her to ignore her parents and do it is Robert Downey Jr. on the set of 1969.
No way.
Who tells
the
her,
rebel, of course.
who his
He's probably
quote is
smoking a joint at the same time. Just do the movie.
his quote is, Noni was offered 9,000 light comedy feel-good hits and chose one where she kills all of her friends.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was the first
He
one?
calls her Noni.
Noni. Come on.
If you ever watch any Robert Downey Jr. interview, he uses nicknames for everybody, and it's always great because he says it with such confidence.
Oh.
He's always like, Noni, and people call him Bob.
Yeah.
That's the funniest. People call him Bob, and it's really unsettling to hear someone go Bob Downey. I'm like, I don't want to hear that.
That's true. They do say that. Yeah.
But he really convinced her. He's like, no, this is the movie you want to do if you want to be in this industry and not just be part of the machine.
Yeah.
And so with that, she really puts herself into the audition process for this movie. She is at first turned away by casting directors for not being pretty enough. And her story is,
what?
They told me I wasn't pretty enough, so she went to the mall, bought makeup, put makeup on, came back and auditioned and got the role.
God, the 80s suck.
From the casting directors.
I mean, not that this was relevant only in the 80s, but I feel like probably more so,
And it's just crazy watching this movie, that is what holds her up, because it's her talent in this movie is just so palpable and incredible.
Yeah.
And they were holding her up based on purely a looks factor for a 16-year-old.
Have you guys seen that? I want to say it was Insider or whatever. There was an interview with her and David Harbour during Stranger Things time. And Winona was talking about her past, was just I wasn't a big deal in the 80s, and there were so many other people. And David Harbour looks at her no. And she was just I wasn't hot off the market, nobody was really looking at me. And David Harbour's his eyebrows are raised, he's very polite, but you can see it on his face. He's just no, you were a smoke show.
He's I had a bit of a crush.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or I wonder if he just straight up says, I think he straight up says that in the interview. He's just no, give yourself some credit. Don't let people tell you that, know?
Yeah.
I don't know if it stems, her saying that now stems from her experience with Heathers or inevitably all throughout Hollywood. But it's just interesting because, and you even said this when we were watching this, is everybody thinks Winona Ryder is kind of the heartthrob of the 80s. And you're she did 3 movies at the 80s.
Yeah.
Right?
She basically is in the 90s after this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, because I'm reading the biography of Winona as we go up to this movie.
Yeah.
And she talks a lot through interviews about how this and Beetlejuice, kind of back-to-back years, made her a celebrity who people know. And that was the biggest challenge for her. And I think really leads into what you were saying about her in the Stranger Things, that she had to deal with public criticism, not even necessarily about her acting, but also just her looks.
Yeah.
She's so young.
Yeah. And she said that was the hardest transition that this movie brought about.
Yeah.
Just now she's a public figure who people have opinions on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, anybody, because it's hard to say, I would say even in this realm, 16, you're still a child. And so in that category of being a child actor, it's growing up in this period and knowing her history and where she's going. I mean, it's amazing she's doing what she's doing now. I mean, obviously that's way, way ahead that we'll get to later, but I think for how much this movie probably changed the course of her life, I think it's a miracle seeing the opposite side of that, of where other child actors can end up. The fact that she's where she is now is like, I think that alone speaks to a testament.
Yeah.
She's
My
able.
impression of child stars too in the 80s is that a lot of them die really young.
Yeah.
It's not that they just end up, in very unfortunate circumstances as they get older, but some of them just like straight up are. Well, even the woman who plays the first Heather, she died at 32.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just young enough, for it to be. And I don't know, she wasn't necessarily a child star per se, but.
It is definitely like she really succeeds off of this by really sticking to her guns and the project she wants to be attached to. After 1969, she never really does something because it makes sense to do. She only does projects and roles that she is interested in.
Yeah.
Good quote from her that I have is, she was saying, I was 16 when I made it, and I went through this whole thing where I wanted to be taken seriously. I was sick of being treated like a kid and then working with these people. Suddenly I was treated as an equal, and they wanted to hear my input on this movie. That this is the first role where she really felt like she had a input in the project itself. She said she'd sometimes try and see how lazy she should get on this project, because this also taught her a good work ethic. I said, Tim Burton aside, my other directors had all been father figures, and all I'd have to do was what I wanted, just bat my eyes and be really cute, and I'd get away with it. And then she said, but with Michael Lemon and Daniel Waters, I couldn't do that. They knew what was up. If I started to get lazy, they'd whack me in the shape pretty quick. But she also said the movie taught her a lot about what she wanted to do with her life, her career, which is never to do anything she wasn't 100% about. Mm-hmm. I said, I could probably have the perfect career if I sat down and talked to people and made decisions. Could have a road mapped out for me and things could be simple. But who wants that? It would mean doing things that I'm not interested in. Like, she could have had a consistent, obvious career, but would it have led to the success that she found by choosing projects that she wanted to do?
Yeah.
It's too bad that it has to be that road or nothing. It is disappointing.
Yeah.
Unique to a women's experience, I think, in Hollywood. But then obviously chosen few other actors as well as actresses. But
because if this movie had turned out like even just 10 degrees different than it did, it could have ended a career. Like, people could have said she's in the pro-suicide movie.
Yeah. Pro school.
Well,
shooting.
they clearly didn't watch the movie, if that's what they're saying. Well, okay. I mean, if I were a parent, a boomer parent in the 80s, looking at this movie where all the parents suck and are oblivious, like, I too would probably feel offended.
Yeah.
If I wasn't locked into what the movie was trying to do.
Yeah. And I think, like, when we go forward from this, like, we've said this earlier in the podcast, Jeff, but, like, because we can say what we will about, like, when we get to, like, sort of, like, I guess, like, her flop period. Yeah. If we can even call it that. Just the period.
We can call it that.
Yeah, flop period. But there's no, like, one movie I can see in, like, her filmography that's, like a notorious flop that, like, because everything she does, at least, like, from the title and, like, the poster, it's, like, I can see, like, reading something, finding an interesting note in there. Not like Battlefield Earth or Hairbrained,
Yeah, there's not quite one of those.
There's not quite one of those in her flop period. It seems like, she goes through a flop period, but she sticks by her motto of, like, I'm going to try to pick things that I think are interesting and not just falling into the cliches.
Yeah.
I think it's because people still see her really as a talented actor, not just a name to slap onto a movie, where I think John Travolta falls into a lot. And you know what? Brandon Fraser a couple times, right?
Travolta and Fraser, they do get into paycheck periods.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Winona doesn't do a few of those, because she does. We'll talk about Homefront.
Yes.
But it's more few and far between. She does try and have some I'm trying to think of the word, like, choosiness as an actor, like some respect for herself as an icon.
Yeah.
And as a, when she attaches herself to a movie, it becomes a Winona Ryder movie.
Yeah.
And she recognizes that and tries to keep that image, clean and respectable.
Absolutely.
I honestly can see that as an uneducated person about Winona, that I get that impression from her just purely off of, like, surface level knowledge of Winona.
Because there's some actors where you look at their career and you're like, they have no interest in what the image of themselves as an actor looks like.
Absolutely.
When you look at someone like Winona Ryder or, for example, like a Tom Cruise or something, like, you can tell that they pick their projects to fit their image.
Yeah.
Like, that interests them. Like, they have a very specific idea of what they want the public to perceive them as.
Yeah.
For different reasons, because I
Yeah.
could, like, Winona, and given what the brief thing you've talked about in her impression, or like her experience getting into movies that she wants to do,
Yeah.
is that it was very difficult and that she kind of had to put her foot down and
Yeah.
like really pave the way herself by saying, no, this is what I do.
Yeah.
That's her trying to portray her image
Yeah.
in a certain way. Whereas Tom Cruise, I'm not a big fan either. So I'm gonna be like weird
Yeah.
for a second, but like I think he does it because he wants to be the perpetual action star,
Yeah.
regardless of being 60
62.
too.
The Tom Cruise thing nowadays is every movie is about how he is the best at whatever he does.
Yeah.
And there are layers to this movie. I enjoy most of them, but like that is the core of what it was.
Yeah.
When he was in the 90s, he was interested in working with big names. That was his goal, was to work with big directors.
Yeah.
He's kind of gotten away from that. He just works with the same guy now. But this is not the Cruise Control podcast. This
I know.
is,
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I see a tangible difference between the two.
Absolutely.
But more respectable in Winona's corner. I
He's
think.
not
Yeah.
taking those Killers of the Flower Moon lawyer roles.
Yeah. What the hell's up?
I think Brendan nowadays is actually in this period where he's picking, he has a very specific idea of what he wants to be doing in a movie.
Yeah.
Well, and Hollywood met him that way because he's
Yeah.
an Oscar-winning actor
Yeah.
now. They're not going to give him chump change.
Because Killers of the Flower Moon changes the paradigm for, like, he changes the tenor of that movie when he comes in.
Yeah.
He always just stands up and starts screaming. We talked about it in the
great.
episode.
Yeah.
And that's the way to, like, when you can be an actor who does that and you change, like, the whole sound of a movie with your presence, that's where you want to be. And that's what Winona's trying to be.
Yeah.
I do want to quickly sidebar,
Yeah.
because this had not come out when we did our Killers of the Flower Moon episode. But we didn't get a chance to talk about Martin Scorsese when asked about Brendan Fraser in that movie, saying he had that girth. We did not get a chance to talk about that.
Not
and
in Winona's world. Not in Winona's world. No, you're gonna have to amend the episode. I refuse.
Oh my God. I just no,
This
he's
is Winona's
typing
time. This is
furiously.
Winona's
No, it's-
era.
The exact quote
Oh, jeez.
is that Scorsese was asked about Brendan Fraser in the movie. He said, he brought the whole scene down on Leo. It was perfect. He had that girth. He's big in the frame at the time. He's a wonderful actor. And I just like, he had that girth. We didn't get to talk about it on air. It has to be recorded in this podcast. I'm sorry.
So Winona.
So Winona. Fantastic in this movie.
Yes, she gets the role as Veronica Sawyer. And then they start looking for her co-star. They audition Brad Pitt and turn him down after the first interview.
Wow, really?
Christian Slater goes in for a audition, feels like he bombed it, has a big tantrum that night by his own recollection, and then gets
Oh.
called the next day and said, you got the role. So goes to show everyone thinks their auditions are bad.
That's interesting that it's like that's such an interesting twist of a paradigm that it's like they got their star actress. Now they got to find the supporting male.
Yeah.
That is such like a little bit of a flip. It's always like they find the leading man, now they got to find the love interest. That's going to be, they cycle woman after woman after woman. It's like, okay, there's our one. Instead, it's different.
That's
now.
the spice of this movie, in my
Yeah.
opinion, and why it was such a good decision to put Winona in that position.
Oh, absolutely.
After Slater gets the role, he does say that he watched a lot of Jack Nicholson to prepare for this role.
Oh, wow, that makes
Oh,
so much
wow.
He
sense.
based the entire, like, the voice and persona off of Jack Nicholson.
I could not tell.
You couldn't tell that I'm trying to do a Jack?
Oh, man.
Hey, Stuart, how are you?
Now
you
he's
do-
really
can-
doing Jack
Can
Nicholson.
you
I didn't
do
even think that.
Christian Slater imposing, pretending to be Jack Nicholson, pretending to talk to me?
Hey, Stuart, how are you?
That's pretty good. That's not too bad.
Try my best.
A little nuanced. I
A
can
little
tell.
nuanced, yeah.
What if Jax moved out and Christian and JD moved in?
Legit.
I would bail.
He exploded.
This
He's
is my apartment too. I would bail.
Oh, my Lord.
Starts building bombs in the office.
But the movie films in 1988 in California, even though it's set in Ohio. The classic Hollywood thing is saying, like, yeah, California looks like the rest of the country. It's never overapparent in Nightmare on Elm Street where they're like, yeah, we're here in like Illinois. No, Halloween's Illinois. They're like, yeah, we're here in Maryland, and they walk past a palm tree.
I guess I didn't. I clocked that it was based in Ohio, and I'm like, of course, this would be based in Ohio. And I guess I'd never really clocked that it was. Well, I've never really visited Ohio either.
Yeah, they always try. It feels like movies like this, Breakfast Club, all those types of things. They try and set in like Middle America.
Indiana's a pretty usually a high contender for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I watched Stranger Things and I was just like, it's a little weird having all these monsters just come out, and like you usually don't see that. And then I realized it was set in Indiana, and I was like, oh, okay, this is just this is a normal occurrence.
Yeah, it is.
I run into Wendigos and Demogorgons in Indiana all the time.
They crawl out of the woodwork.
Yeah, they're just there at a truck stop smoking a cigarette on the corner. You're like, ugh.
Full Moon, Indiana. Lock your doors.
They knew this one had to be on location.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So not shot in Ohio. Okay.
Yeah, that's all I have in terms of a pretext. It does get shot and then released, and for our viewing pleasure, it comes out.
And Slater and Ryder dated during this movie.
They dated for 2 weeks after the movie had ended.
Oh, after the movie. During the promotional period.
Yes. And Winona regrets it, not because like she had a bad experience with Christian Slater, but because it set off for the next 10 years. She said, I would always just get accused of dating my co-stars. And she's like, every tabloid would just be about me dating whoever I was acting opposite at the time. She's like, there was a rumor about me and Alec Baldwin off of Beetlejuice. And she's like, I need to just put...
Oh my God.
And she's just like,
terrible.
Which is the worst thing you can possibly ever have on your name is dated Alec Baldwin. Like, who wants
she
that?
married Michael Keaton in the movie. Come on.
Yeah, clearly. When her real dating life, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is like, Johnny Depp for a while. Yeah. Which is another co-star, but she's like, the problem became that as a woman, I would just get dogged as whenever I'm in a movie, I'm dating the male in the movie. That is just how it was.
Yeah.
She's fighting that so young, too.
That's the thing that hasn't really quite ended yet. It seems to be a perpetual thing that when it's like two actors in a love interest rolled together and they either end up dating or they don't end up dating, but people think they end up dating.
They were co-stars on Crybaby? No. Johnny Depp and
Scissorhands.
Edward Scissorhands.
Oh my God! Well, what the heck?
A movie I can't wait to talk about.
I forgot already. Oh wow! Yeah. So that one is after Heathers. Yeah. I would have thought. I always think Edward Scissorhands is older than it
That's
is.
90.
Yeah, I think it's 90 because he does it in between Batman and Batman Returns.
Yeah, and so that means she would have been, because she's born in 1971. So she's 19 in 1990.
Yeah, she would have been 19.
Because she's 16 during Heathers. Christian Slater's born in 1969, so he's 19 during this movie.
Yeah, I think she would actually have been 17 when they shot this movie.
Oh, really?
She probably was saying... She either probably falsely recollected at the time, or it was when she read the script she was 16. But she would have been 17 shooting this.
Gotcha. Okay.
But under 18.
Yes.
Dating Christian Slater.
How old was Christian Slater?
Yeah,
he said 19.
Math, I said at 19, he might have been 20.
And you were right, 19. He would have been 19.
Yeah.
Not a huge age.
Not terrible,
right, whatever.
Not terrible, not great. 200 broken. Not terrible, not great.
So we want to delve into the movie? That's basically all I have in terms of context.
Yeah, let's blow this sucker up. Let's go.
All right.
I'm out the gate shooting. Sorry, I'm uncomfortable.
So the movie starts with we get the song "K Sarah Sarah," which I don't think it was not written for this movie.
It feels very pointed for it to be not written for the movie.
Yeah, it's called "Whatever Will Be Will Be." It was from an Alfred Hitchcock movie called "The Man Who Knew Too Much."
Okay.
But they used two versions of it in this movie. Kind of a more stereotypical 80s one in the opening credits, and then
it's bookended.
Yeah, a more somber one at the end.
Yeah. But we're starting off with kind of this floaty, almost dreamlike camera movement falling onto like a polo. They're playing
croquet.
Croquet. Polos on horses.
Yes,
that's right. I remember that.
Very different movie.
Very different movie.
I'm coincidentally reading a book right now that explained to me that polo is just the one with horses. So it's a good thing that I'm reading that book right now.
Yeah. It would have kind of made sense if it was polo, because like it just perpetuates that. Oh, these are the rich, like popular kids, and it'd be even funnier if Winona like can't really ride a horse, but she's still trying. Anyway,
I really want to know if croquet was kind of a joke, because it's not a very like feminine game, or it's not like really.
Croquet's just a weird sport.
I think it's just like one of the sports you associate with rich people.
Oh, sure.
But, like, you're
I don't know
trying-
if I do. So that maybe that's why I'm.
Well, it's not
disconnected.
golf, but it's also not polo. So what is it? like you're hitting bigger balls with bigger hammers.
It's a yard game. You know, it's just.
I associate croquet with like kind of a Victorian household.
Yeah.
And the woman in the big puffy dress,
Totally.
walking around doing hitting
Oh,
the
so
ball.
I like that because I feel like that is a little pointed.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be the 80s, you know. Maybe I'll have to ask my mom later, but like the frilly socks
Yeah.
and the shoes and the tights, you know.
This movie's very it's this movie is about a lot of things, which we'll delve into, because what I kept thinking about watching this movie last night is that whenever we talk about movies, we talk about a movie being about something. Like, we're like, The Matrix is about being in like a computerized world, and it is about that, but it's about so many other things. Like, movies are about 10 to 20 different topics. And so that's what is so rich about this movie. This movie is about so many things.
Yeah.
It's about class dynamics. It's about assimilation. It's about, generational differences. Genders. There's so many, ideas, thoughts. Not all of them are complete thoughts. Some of them are just ideas that are thrown out. All just kind of compounded into this very rich text of a movie that I think is a lot of fun for us to delve into.
I'm trying to think, because it's not cornhole, because I know cornhole's a little bit more.
Yeah, cornhole is the great American sport.
Is the great American sport, but have you guys played? I'm trying to find the name of this game, but it's
Lawn toss.
Is that what it is?
No,
Well, lawn toss
that's
is-
just cornhole. That's a different state.
No. It's what's the name of this game?
Oh, okay.
What's
well,
the name of it?
do you want to hear the Wisconsin name for it?
What's the Wisconsin name for it?
Ah.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Wrap the nut.
Wrap the
Whoa.
nut? Is that what they call it?
The thing is my parents would call it like that. I, as a kid, with a sponge of a brain, started calling it, wrap the nut, because I didn't know necessarily that it was not very
The
nice.
thing is, I googled "rap the nut game" and nothing
Nothing
up.
pops up. I just did the same thing too. But what is the name of the actual game?
Yeah.
It's not cornhole. That's the one with the boards and the bean
Yeah.
bags. But like
For the folks listening, it's the
balls with strings connecting them.
two golf balls on a
Two
string,
yeah.
and you toss it to a 3-tiered, almost like it's always just like piping.
Yeah.
It's really fun. I like it.
I like it too, and it's like that seems like a very specific Midwest niche yard game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of different game developers make it and call it different things.
Yeah,
Just like cornhole,
I
lawn
don't know
toss.
what it's called.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But tell your
yeah.
friends it's called Wrap the Nut.
Wrap the nut.
But
I have a feeling now I think it's my family actually just says that.
But like the antithesis of this introductory scene of croquet is just like people playing like Wrap the Nut or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. I posed this question when the movie was over, and I regret not going back to it because you have all the Heathers and they have color coordinated costumes with the croquet ball that they're playing with, and
Yeah.
Winona starts with her head in the ground,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny, and I love this like dream sequence that's happening, that you enter the whole movie and like this is so non-serious, and that's like sets the tone, right?
Yeah.
But I wonder if the blue ball, because she's the blue Heather more or less, like if that's in play somewhere in this scene. Because I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't
didn't-
think it says much of anything, but I was curious to see if it was in there.
I didn't see one, but
didn't either.
I definitely was like, because I get the idea from this first scene that she's on the move to become a Heather. She's not quite at Heather level yet.
Yeah.
She's still just a Veronica. Veronica's like second lieutenant, and then you get to general, commandeer,
Yeah.
Heather level. But she's not at Heather level yet. But she's
The
getting-
Heather ecosystem.
the Heather ecosystem, yes. And I'm not gonna lie, I watched this movie and I watched the other movie we were gonna cover today on this recording session Wednesday night, so my memory's a little bit dry and foggy on a lot of it, but I'm trying to think of what.
I pulled up the opening scene. The blue ball is not in play.
Not in play.
So it's only introduced when Veronica kind of starts assimilating into their
Yeah, because
clique.
she doesn't. Jeff and I clocked the use of the color blue in the movie really early. One, it's very obvious. The cinematography is just about as subtle as the movie is, so very not. But yeah, she starts to really assimilate slowly but surely.
Mm-hmm.
So the blue becomes more prevalent. The blue ball comes in.
The first thing we get kind of established in this scene is the Heathers are playing croquet, and Winona, playing Veronica Sawyer, is just stuck in the ground. And they're all trying to hit her head with the balls. And then we realize it's a dream sequence. It's not a real thing that's happening, but it's inside of her psyche. This is how she feels around these characters, that she's kind of just their plaything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she is so committed to like fitting into the clique at the time that she's willing to be the plaything. And it's so much the movie, it's interesting class dynamics is interesting to me because she is trying to, she'd rather, be, to quote an earlier movie, she'd rather be at the right hand of the devil than in his path from the Mummy. That she's trying to like, she's willing to be their punching bag to have like a taste of the glamour.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just, how a lot of people feel about the rich. It's like they'd serve them just to have a little bit of what they have.
Yeah.
But at the same time, something I really picked up on is Veronica's house is the one with the croquet game.
Yeah.
They have to come to her
right.
for that.
Yeah, you're right.
They're just exploiting her for her goods.
Right.
And so it's just kind of this interesting.
Well, so many people feed on Veronica too.
Yeah.
JD does. That's kind of the idea.
That like that as much as she wants to like fit into something, she's the one who people need.
Yeah.
And it's really her who can choose like how she is being deployed in this world.
She becomes self-aware.
Yeah, by the end of the movie, she does become self-aware and make a conscious choice to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Which is different than the original ending of this movie.
Which we'll talk about.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like I said, accidental masterpiece.
Accidental masterpiece.
This movie accidentally has a very good message. But she comes to in her dream, after her dream, and we just kind of get introduced to the characters as they are. There's the three Heathers. Last names Duke, McNamara, and Chandler. I don't know how the hell we're going to keep this straight through this episode.
Well, the yellow Heather, the green Heather, and the red Heather.
Yellow, blue, red.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I guess the green Heather turns into the red Heather at the end.
Yeah, that would be the complicating factor. That is correct.
That's
Yeah, because
true,
the yellow Heather, she's
The
she
yellow
stays
Heather
yellow.
doesn't really do much.
It's
after that.
the red one that dies first?
Yes.
dies first.
And then, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, green assimilates into the red after JD gives her the red scrunchy
Yes.
ribbon.
Veronica's main utility to the Heathers is that she has a mimic-like ability to copy anyone's handwriting.
Yeah.
Which they use in the scene to pass a love letter to an overweight girl in the classroom, telling her that like a football player loves her.
And this is
What
the
did they
cafeteria.
They call her something.
They call her
really
Martha Dump Truck.
Dump truck.
We have, as a society, have reclaimed a dump truck as a compliment nowadays. This
Just makes me really sad.
This
I'm
is
like really
societal
sad.
growth.
Proud of myself. I kept that all hit.
Oh, Stuart's choking down laughter. I'm trying not to cry.
It's like,
He's not holding it in.
He's not holding it anymore. He's giving up. Veronica deeply regrets that she's now stuck with these Heathers.
That's disrespectful of the dump truck. You better
Movie
take her
does-
name out of your mouth.
Look, the Martha Dump Truck storyline is sad in this movie, but there is
Can
one
we call her Martha, please?
there is one really good joke they do later.
oh, God damn it.
I'm begging you, just call
Yeah.
her Martha.
Martha only gets one line in this movie.
Oh.
At the very end.
Oh, yeah.
Which is very like telling of what the movie's trying to say.
Yeah.
So Veronica just comes across this guy JD in the class in the cafeteria. She's trying to get him to fill out a survey.
Yeah.
There's so many surveys in this movie.
And
it's a dumb yearbook survey or something. It's
Well,
like,
it's-
if you get $5 million, but you know the world's going to end in 24 hours, what would you do with it?
yeah. And it's funny how it goes around the room and like all these kids are like, I'd give it to my dad for investments.
Yeah.
I'd give it to the homeless. It's like all these people who are trying to save face and look good with this question, even though like the world ends in 24 hours and there's nothing that you're going to be able to accomplish.
Yeah.
And Slater's basically the only one who answers honestly.
It's like, that's such a stupid question.
Yeah, he's like, that's a stupid question. If I had the money, I'd get on a boat with a bunch of drugs, have sex on the boat until the world ended.
Yeah.
And like, it's the only honest answer she gets, and she's kind of attracted by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I love, at some point a girl was just like, I would just give it to all the homeless in the community and blah, blah, blah.
It's like, they're all going to die today.
Winona just goes, "You're beautiful," and walks away. And then that's when Heather goes, "God damn, Heather, what's your damage?" Or "God damn, Veronica, what's your damage?" Or no, is that the mega bitch line? Because I have to know.
I think it might be the mega bitch line.
No, because she asks. I think that's in the alley, Jeff.
Oh, is that in the alley?
Why are you being such a mega bitch?
I think you're right.
Bitch. Gosh, it's so good.
After she walks away from JD, two football players go up to him and start accusing him of being gay, to which JD pulls out a gun and shoots them.
With blanks.
With blanks. But it is very startling.
But it's like a very early, like, jarring image of the movie, and especially in our context.
Yeah,
like,
2023 goggles had me clutching.
It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's funny how this movie really plays with the look of an 80s teen comedy.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's all very, like, what would you call it? Like, filtered. It all feels very filtered. Like, everything's kind of soft in the movie. It's very colorful. It has this incredibly funny 80s synth score where everything's like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, the, like, low pipe flute.
Yeah.
That Jeff and I were like, it sounds like an instructional video we were sat down in front of in, like, 8th grade, 7th grade.
And it's so funny how this is, up until this point, you could buy that this is just, like, an 80s comedy where it's like this girl's sick of being with all the rich kids. Now she's going to go back to her old friends.
Right.
And then he pulls out a gun and the movie completely changes his tenor.
Yeah. And it cuts back to them playing polo croquet again.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Get your shit together.
Yeah. And they're like, well, like, he's just going to be suspended for like a week or whatever. And I'm like, suspended for a week?
For bringing
Yeah.
even if his blank's loaded weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
they
it's-
have a little discussion, but it's all very like at some point he's just like, no, they should like lock him up. He's like, at most he's gonna get suspended. It's totally fine. And then the conversation continues.
It's like, it was just blanks. Like, whatever.
yeah, like
Just-
get over yourself. It was fine.
Yeah.
Oh, could not be done today.
Could not be bothered.
And so before we run into JD again, we get a little more of Veronica's like home life because the parents come to pick up the Heathers and we're introduced to her parents, mom and dad. And I love the dad.
Yeah.
Because she pulls up and he's just sitting there reading like some shitty spy novel. And he's like, I wish someone would tell me why I read all these spy novels. And she's like, because you're an idiot. And he's like, oh, yep, that's it.
You guys.
And she like, it shows that she lives this kind of idyllic lifestyle with her parents. Idyllic as you would, see it in the 80s.
Yeah.
In the traditional sense.
Well, it's just these parents are so oblivious.
Yeah.
If I called my dad an idiot, game over.
Game
over.
over. Yeah.
And it's her mom. I mean, it's drilled in, and the whole scene plays over again, right?
Mhm.
Except it's not a spy novel. The next time, it's like
It's a cigarette.
a cigarette. Yeah.
It's a very funny way to immediately set up the dynamics in this town. That it's like the parents are oblivious; they don't care about they care about their kids, and just assume that they're fine.
Yeah.
And don't care about going any deeper than that.
Well, it was this whole same thing of like we think about it now where it's like parents with kids, everybody's got a device, everybody can be tracked and you have social media and all that stuff. So it's a lot easier to like keep tabs on what your kids are doing and all that stuff. But if you travel back in time, go on a Saturday, walk up to a house, knock on the door, and it's like parents and their kids aren't home, and you ask them, where are your kids right now? they won't know what to tell you. It's like, well, they know to come home when the street lamps come on, and like that's it.
Curfew.
Yeah, they have a curfew. Like they'll be back, and that's it. That was the vibe.
The relationships are all very shallow. The parents just assume their kids are gonna grow up okay. They don't really put much effort into learning them as who they are as people.
Yeah,
I mean, JD talks to his dad like he's the dad.
like he's the dad.
Yeah.
I was work today, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, sport.
That's the funniest one because the dad is fully like also a psychopath.
Unhinged.
Yes.
But probably thinks his son is totally fine. Has no problems with him.
Yeah. Oh man.
But Winona, after she goes to a party. The next bit's the party, right?
I think so. Again, my memory's a little bit vague on a lot of this stuff. But I believe so because she goes with one of the Heathers.
Yeah, she goes with Red Heather to a frat party.
Chandler.
And it's a college
Chandler.
party, and it's seen as like a huge like an honor. It's like I'm taking you to the frat party. It's like there's gonna be college boys there.
Mm-hmm.
And this one of my favorite scenes is it's Winona in a hallway, and there's a guy like hitting on her. He's like, it's kind of cool you're not in like college yet, because then people just talk the normal shit like, what's your major, blah blah blah, and then she doesn't say anything and it gets quiet. So what do you think you'll study when you get to college?
I think he's really interesting.
Is that the whole like, I have a speech but you're not even worth it?
Yeah.
Like speech for guys who want.
Yeah, because he immediately tries to have sex with her.
Yeah.
She pushes him off. And he's like, you're going to give me some kind of speech? And she says, you're not worth my speech.
Queen.
And she kind of storms out, or she finds
Red Heather,
who had just had sex and is like washing her mouth out.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, Heather, I feel really sick. We got to go. And Heather's like, what's your damage? Or something along those lines.
What's your damage?
I needed you to say it.
Yeah.
And then she vomits on Heather. And they run out into the alley where they have a confrontation. Veronica's basically removed from the Heather clique at this point.
Yeah, effectively. And then she comes across JD, who's...
Yeah, she comes back to her house and JD's there.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I knew like how she met JD after the party was under weird circumstances.
Yeah, he's just like at her house. He's like, greetings and salutations.
It's giving milady.
Mm-hmm.
It's giving.
Oh my God, milady.
Yeah, it's giving like.
Pleased to meet you, milady.
Like on our first watch, and my impression, it's been a year, 2 years maybe since we watched this movie. Like my memory of Jason Slater in this movie was a lot more dark and mysterious than
Bad boy.
I got. Yeah,
He's basically an edgelord.
Oh my God.
That's so perfect.
That's what he is. He's an edgelord. Like,
No, 100%.
this movie at the beginning wants you to think that he's the cool Jack Nicholson type, and then deconstructs it to the end where you realize this guy's just like a loser.
Yeah.
The reason he's doing this is because he's sad and lonely and wants to be dead, and he wants to bring everyone else with him.
Nobody loves me. It's like, that's what this was about.
Yeah. It's like, it's really just a deconstruction of that archetype who appears in a lot of these movies. Because like Breakfast Club, he's very similar to that one who I'm forgetting the actor's name in The Breakfast Club. Like that's like kind of the outsider type. And that movie's lesson is like, well, he finds friends and everything's okay.
Yeah.
And this movie just takes it to its logical conclusion.
Interesting take, Jeff.
Yeah.
It takes it to its
logical.
I mean, granted that, obviously I know like to get to that conversation already, but school shootings obviously been happening before like Columbine and things like that. But I definitely think like this kind of just missed the turning point, which I think Columbine sort of established of like, okay, kids killing kids in schools is not funny anymore, guys. Like,
because the movie's message in that respect is kind of like, if we continue to live in this world where it's like parents don't put any interest into their kids and kids just are all segmented and cliquey, then it's going to lead to a kid who wants to blow up the school. Will blow up the school.
Yeah.
And a lot of movies at this time would not dare to say that.
No.
That's a very controversial, idea to have in your movie.
That's controversial to say right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people don't want to blame the parents for the more recent shootings. And I was saying recent as in like this year, but like from Heather's onward.
Yeah.
Well,
so a lot of it is, they were bullied, or like these kids need to be nicer to each other. It's just like there's so much oversight from the parents.
Yeah, and like
staff and teachers and.
Well, on a depressing note of that, in a real life circumstance, like the Parkland shooter had access to guns in his house. The parents said on national television on a CNN interview, it's like, well, yeah, he knew the combination, but he knew the rules that the gun had to be back in the safe by 10:30.
It's the same.
What?
That's very Heather.
It's like we would go tell him to like
Heathers.
he has to. It's time for dinner, and we would let him know in his room where he's messing with the rifle. And it's like, you got to put the rifle away. Time to go to dinner. I'm like,
insane.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I think a lot about. I can't believe I'm going to bring this up, but the South Park movie, where that movie's about the parents are concerned that their kids are all becoming assholes. And so rather than blame themselves, they decide they're going to blame the television show that they all watch. And more specifically, they're going to blame the country of Canada for animating the show and sing an Oscar-nominated song called Blame Canada, which was performed by Robin Williams at the Oscars that year.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's an incredibly entertaining performance. You're going to watch it. But it has some really great... It's a really fun song. It has some great lines. Like, we must... I'm going to try and find the lyrics to Blame Canada.
Yeah. I saw an ad the other day that came up about a documentary, and it was a lot about the LGBTQIA, like messaging and everything, and that they're infiltrating even therapy now and
Infiltrating
all this jazz. And I'm
schools,
like, y'all will really, you guys will blame everybody but yourselves.
yeah.
And so much so you're going to make an in-depth documentary that looks like you're digging up like the biggest dirt that nobody knows about and nobody wants to talk about. I'm like, you really will do that except recognizing your
the thing
actions
that's
in this.
standing right in front of you.
Yeah, which Heathers, man.
The exact line in Blame Canada is, "For the smut we must stop, the trash we must smash, the laughter and fun must all be undone. We must blame them and cause a fuss before somebody thinks of blaming us."
It's the Catholic pedophile ring
Yeah.
when they said that this is because too many gays came into the church. That's exactly what it is.
The logic is missing.
Yeah.
So JD's at Veronica's house.
Yeah.
He does his greetings and salutations thing. And she falls hook, line, and sinker for him at the moment.
Yeah.
They kind of they sleep together.
Yeah.
Because he's, honest with her, which is what she wasn't getting from the college guy. And
Or anybody,
yeah,
really.
he actually has unique thoughts,
Yeah.
which we'll later find out he doesn't have unique thoughts, but
Right.
he very much is seeming to have unique thoughts and kind of tells her, like, you don't have to be with those crazy girls. And how much they both hate the Heathers.
I love how everybody thinks they're so much smarter than Veronica,
Mm-hmm.
like JD included.
Yeah.
Veronica's leaps and bounds ahead of everybody.
Yeah. She's the smartest character in the movie. She
Yeah.
outsmarts everybody by the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A victim of getting gaslit a lot.
Yeah.
Is the problem with JD. He's not smart, but he's just really good at committing himself
Yeah.
to gaslighting her.
It actually leads into my only kind of riff with this movie is the fact that we don't really get to see how Veronica ended up with the Heathers. If she's really like as smart as the movie portrays her, and as someone who, through a little bit of trouble, becomes really like self-aware and like really takes control of like her own destiny, how does she end up with a trio of like the most airheaded, selfish, like unintelligent, you could say, like...
I think for me, like, you kind of said it with the Mummy quote of like, better to be at the right hand of the devil than in its path. I kind of see it as more as like camouflage.
Because
It's like if I'm not on their side of the aisle, I'll be a target and I'll end up like Martha Dumptruck. Sorry.
I think that's just
Like-
the way to not, say society, but like it's the way
Society.
that this movie is like, this movie's argument of society is just like, that's how you're supposed to do it, is you work for the people in power.
Yeah.
okay.
It's all about power. And it's like, that's where you want to be, is you should work for the people in power and forget about the people who aren't.
And it's totally her arc to leave the Heathers at the end,
Yes.
right? Like it's not necessarily, yeah.
I think it's the jump from where she is of the Heathers to becoming self-aware that the movie does a lot of work to get you there, but there's like a moment where I was like, that's a little bit of a logic jump, a little bit, just in the sense that she, not even so much, because like after all of like JD's like gaslighting, and eventually she just kind of like calls it for what it is and says like none of this is actually like that intelligent or wise. Like
She even calls him on his bluff by hanging herself.
yeah, exactly.
Essentially.
So I don't know, but I think it was that's just my interpretation, is the power dynamic thing with it, just working for the rich.
And so we keep cutting back to Winona writing in her diary. That's like a through line through the movie.
Huge penmanship, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
She writes in massive lettering. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's funny.
like 7
Big
words.
ass B.
Yeah. She's like, everybody her Midwest accent's really coming out in this movie.
Yes, it is.
Which is great. She's like, everybody wants me to be a part of it. You want me to grow up, be adults, and die. Everybody's pigeonholed into this. You could probably do it better, Becca.
I'm rearing up for it. Just give me a
Gotta really activate Midwest mode.
Because I feel like her and I actually talk kind of similarly.
You do
I'm
have
just-
similar.
Yeah.
I'm just now realizing.
It's the northern Midwest tone.
Yeah. Where is she from?
She's from Winona, Minnesota, which is right on the border
That's
of
right.
Wisconsin and Minnesota.
No, I definitely know where Winona is. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me that.
There's a native Wisconsinite over here. I guess technically you're a Minnesotan originally.
Yeah. Born and somewhat raised.
Born and somewhat raised.
In Minnesota?
The great state.
Did I know this? Maybe. I don't
I
know.
moved to Wisconsin in 2000. So.
Okay.
2001 actually.
Mhm.
Yeah. Christmas 2001.
The great state.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least you weren't born in New Jersey.
Or Indiana.
Or Indiana. Gee, I should have said
You
that.
know who
Jesus.
was, though, born in Indiana? The DP of this movie.
Shame for him.
Shame.
Probably had a bad childhood.
Yeah.
Jesus. I totally remember that she was named after the town she was born in. I totally remember that now.
But the so their plan is they want to get back at Heather, and she's like, let's make her vomit tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so they break into her house. They break into a lot of houses in this movie.
Very chill.
Just by opening the back door.
Very chill. Well, it's like those 80s thing where the bullies, like, we think of bullying now. It's like, oh, like, give him a swirly, give me a wedgie. And bullying back then in movies is like, let's carve a letter on his stomach. And you're like, whoa. Like, It Part 1 is like, we're literally going to cut into this guy's stomach. And it's like, or Stand By Me or anything like that.
And they say kids these days need to touch grass. They had nothing but grass in 80s.
Their faces were getting
In so
shoved
many
in
ways.
it. But yeah, they do break into the house.
And she's like, what if we do something like combine orange juice and milk and spit in it?
I love that scene so much.
And Jay's like, I got the
rat poison.
She's totally unaware of like what he's really capable of. And the whole movie is just her finally catching on to it.
Because she keeps thinking he's joking.
Right.
Because he pulls up hole cleaner.
Right.
Or like drain.
Hole cleaner.
Yeah.
Hole cleaner.
That's what it says on the thing. It says hole cleaner.
No. No. Hole cleaner.
And so he.
Oh God.
And
I guess same difference.
that's what it says on the label that he picks up.
Can you
Really?
say that
Yeah.
in the Christian Slater voice? Is like, what if we put some hole cleaner?
Hull hole cleaner. But he's like, what if we
Sorry,
fed her this?
Jack.
And she's like, oh, that's so funny. He's like, I think we should do it. And so he pours like a coffee cup, and she's like, no, we can't do that. And he's like, all right, but I'll put the lid on it so she won't know. He does very much sound like Jack when you think about it.
Yeah.
So much. When you brought it up, part of me just kind of took a star off of his
Yeah.
performance, in my opinion.
He wears a big, long black trench coat, like essentially like the whole movie.
Yeah.
Which, sorry, but red flag number 1.
Yeah.
Right there.
Well, red flag was greetings and
That's how you take
salutations.
that.
Yeah.
Pulling out a gun in the cafeteria.
That too.
The thing about this movie is that what they should do is they should have had actual Jack Nicholson in 1988 play this role, but as a teenager. Jack
No.
at his like kind
No.
of Batman Rotunda era,
Oh
just
my
being like,
God.
Jeff, you are
All
on
right.
an island right
let
now.
me think about it.
Jesus.
No.
We're gonna blow up the school.
You know what I was just thinking of,
No.
like on it's a wildly different movie, but it's on the same vein of like ignoring red flags until you kind of have to. Barbarian, kind of similar
Yeah.
in that regard
Yeah.
of like she's with Justin Long, who is this like horrible rapist, and
Yeah.
and she's like, I have to save him, but it's like, come get your baby, throws her off a cliff to
Oh
save his
my
own
God.
skin, like just kind of like that vibes with Winona, who doesn't really see at this point in time like the capabilities of JD.
I mean, the movie. The thing I kept thinking about watching this movie is the pilot for Twin Peaks, which is a 90-minute episode of television that's just all about the way that grief radiates throughout a community and everyone makes it about them, which is very much what this movie is.
Yeah.
So
So much so.
Yeah.
very much. Yeah.
And I would obviously include some of the first season of that, but like the pilot of Twin Peaks, which was made as its own independent thing.
Yeah.
As a movie, you can very much see some similarities between that and this movie.
Yeah.
And their analysis of how grief goes through a community.
Well, speaking of grief, we're getting to the penultimate scene of Heathers right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
This is
the penultimate. We're at the end.
All
this
right.
guy.
We're at Heather Chandler's end.
Yeah.
And
Trudeau.
this is the weirdest like death scene because she's asleep in bed.
Yeah.
And they just like stand over her bed and she wakes up. It's like, the fuck you guys doing here? It's
Yeah.
like,
We made you some concoction.
Well, the thing is, JD definitely calls that she's just exactly what he thinks she is. Like, oh, look, she won't drink it because, you're
too chicken.
too chicken. And then she immediately drinks it.
Yeah, and then she's like, you think I'm going to drink it just because you say I'm a chicken? And then she takes it and drinks it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that because it basically would be like Drano is the equivalent of what she drinks.
Yeah.
A hole cleaner, Jeff.
Yeah, that is what
Please.
I will bring up the scene in the movie. That's what it says on the bottle.
I believe you.
With outside of this podcast, whatever you say, Drano, I'm just gonna say hole cleaner, Jeff.
Yeah.
It's hole cleaner. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, she drinks that and almost immediately is like coughing up,
Yeah,
chokes.
Well,
She
we-
just start.
Yeah, Jeff and I were thinking about it, how painful that would be
Yeah, Drano.
to throw acid down your gullet.
Yeah. What do you think is
Awful.
worse, Drano or bleach?
Drano.
Drano.
Drano?
It
Drano's
would work
like
faster.
yeah, I think Drano.
Super acidic.
Yeah, that like would dissolve your
It's
insides
corrosive.
immediately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
Which bleach would do eventually, but
But you can at least stomach it maybe a little bit.
for like maybe 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Both are deadly, highly deadly.
Don't
Yeah.
do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it, please. We talk about the
Um,
teenage suicide movie.
yes.
Don't do it.
Teenage suicide.
Don't do it.
That is the song.
She immediately croaks.
Yeah, she dies and falls through a glass table. She says something that I can't remember what the line is, but she says some
shit.
final
I don't
testament. And she's dead.
Yeah.
And then Veronica immediately loses her mind. She's very upset. She says, I have to send my SAT scores to San Quentin instead of Sanford.
Amazing.
No.
Yeah.
Which is
Really
funny because
good.
they are in Ohio. San Quentin's
Oh,
in
yeah.
San Francisco.
Good.
But it's a good joke,
It
regardless.
was a good joke. Because he gaslights her into thinking that she just grabbed the wrong cup.
Yes.
Even though he clearly like did a little switcheroo.
His manipulation is fast
Yeah, very fast. And so he's saying
and
it's like,
deadly.
well, hey, like, why don't we just like say that she committed suicide? Like, you got good handwriting, right? And so he kind of like takes her hand and like makes her like write the note. Or no, wait, I think
That's a little later.
That's a little
but
bit later
yeah,
actually when it's like
It does
for
happen.
something else. But yeah,
He
so
was gonna kill her.
she starts writing the note and she's like she starts using like vocabulary that Heather wouldn't use.
Yeah.
What's the particular
Myriad.
word? Myriad. It's like
Because he's like the myriad of life's problems. She's like she wouldn't have said that. She flunked
the vocabulary test last week.
for myriad, and
High
it's
school
like
vocabulary.
so that's
test.
exactly why she would use it.
Right, because of her failures is all
Marking
coming
of her
back to her
failure.
now. And so then that happens. Like they write the note and they leave, and then like the story breaks out of
Yeah.
like Heather having committed suicide.
There's I think the first thing we see is like the schoolroom.
I was gonna say, is it the boardroom?
Yeah, it's the school boardroom.
Yeah.
Where the principal tells all the teachers like, yeah, student committed suicide. We're gonna keep
Very
it under
sad.
wraps.
We can let them out for like an hour early, but we can't do
Yeah.
a half day for a cheerleader. Like, or no, yes, like what was she? It's like it was Heather. Was Heather a cheerleader?
No, the other
Only the
Heathers.
Because I thought what they said was like, oh, well, if she was a cheerleader, I could give him half a day off. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
This scene just to hit home more of like how dumb the adults are.
Yeah.
Like really all.
And
of
they're
us.
all the teachers are kind of apathetic about the whole scenario,
except for one.
except for one who's like, we need to come together as a community
And they're like, shut up, Mrs.
and celebrate.
So-and-so."
Yeah, I think the principal or maybe superintendent was just like, yeah.
We're not going to do that.
Well, he was like, tell me how tight the straitjacket is, or like he makes a joke that she's like crazy,
Yeah, right.
something like that.
And the thing is, like, both sides of this are just like they're uninformed adults.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, there's even the teacher who really wants to like help the student populace is doing it mostly for her own benefit,
Yeah.
and then also just kind of feels like if we all come together, that'll fix everything.
Well, there is a teacher, and is it the kind of like for lack of a better term, like the hippie teacher? Is she the one that says like this is a reflection of our own failure?
Yeah,
I think a teacher does say that essentially, like the whole thesis of the movie.
yeah. She says it's a reflection of our own failure, and the way we fix it is by all coming together as a community.
So it
and
was the same
celebrating.
teacher. That's not
yeah.
okay.
You know what I kind of felt that as? You guys had like Dare come to your school.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's
Big
kind of
Dare
how I
energy.
felt it. It's like the Dare.
Oh, we had
instructors.
Deputy Deb come.
Deputy Deb. I
Yeah.
can't remember what our Dare
Deputy Deb
instructor
was our Dare
was.
instructor.
I mean, I've told you about my high school putting on a whole homecoming, like trying to prevent kids from driving drunk.
Oh yeah, we had a pre-prom.
Sort of, what do you call that?
Reenactment.
Well, it was Grim Reaper Day. Yeah. You know, this is Heather's course, so I will tell this story, but a abridged version. Essentially, a bunch of students got to sign up to be part of Grim Reaper Day. And you could sign up to be an escort, you can assign to be dead. And all those who signed up to be dead got pulled out of class by a police officer and a Grim Reaper, or like a guy in a Grim Reaper costume. They would have a big long spiel of like, your fellow student Tracy decided to drive drunk after homecoming and she is dead. And then they pull you out of class very solemnly. And then that student disappears for the school day, only to come back.
Fuck yeah, that's
And they're like roped off in the cafeteria because we're meant to have missing students. Like these students are dead, right? And the escorts are only there to be the mode of communication between the dead student and the real student.
Wait, so they're mediums?
My gosh, I'm so into the lore of this now, but
Me too.
I was a dead student.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And when they got to the gymnasium, what do they call that?
Auditorium.
Well, no, like when you bring everybody into the gymnasium.
pep rally?
Pep rally.
Pep rally.
The pep rally, all the lights were off in the cafeteria. All of the students that were dead had a white cloth and they were laying on the floor while the escort held a tombstone with their name on it. The pep rally starts, there's no talking. They haul in a real casket.
Oh my god.
And
the craziest
police
shit.
officers, this is all real, circa 2013. The police officers carry this casket to a little like platform at the front of the gym on the stage. And then a real person comes out and tells his story about how he drove drunk as a teenager and killed 4 of his friends, like an actual inmate. Tells this story.
Okay.
There's so much pomp and circumstance to this.
Yes.
Someone was really proud of themselves for coming up to this.
So what happened with ours was pre-prom. And what they did was like the first thing is, I don't know, I was never like a volunteer for any of the things. My God, what is this Joker doing?
A
This
GT
supercharger truck.
Yeah.
If you guys hear that, sorry, maybe I can take it out.
Yeah.
But so I don't know what the volunteer process was like or any of the logistics because like I was never a part of it. But what they would do is they brought us all outside first and to the parking lot. And what they staged like a car accident.
Yeah, I've had this too.
Yeah, where like they do the production value really high because they have like a busted windshield and one of the students who volunteers to be dead is like over the windshield dead and they have other people like in full like prom gowns and outfits like literally crying, weeping, and they brought an ambulance. They stage a whole scene as if it was like a drunk driver.
My school brought a helicopter in.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
They go balls to the wall with this. And then they brought us into the auditorium where they have like 2 stages where they have a scrim to divide the sets.
Yeah.
So they had the scrim down for the first set. The first set was a court case. And you had the guy who was being arrested outside.
This is a production.
In like full on like inmate outfit. And they got a judge, a real fucking judge, to read the sentencing of this kid. It'd be like, Nathan Pike or blah, blah, blah. That's his real name. Nathan Pike was the guy who got arrested. As far as I'm aware, he's married. I think they have a child on the way and they're doing very well. So he's fine. But they was like, Nathan Pike, I sentenced you to so many years, blah, 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 blah. And then like slams his gavel and then like, goes black. The scrim goes up. Lights come back on. It's a funeral. And it's an open casket with the same kid in the casket. And on the side, you have the kid's actual family. I think it was Connor Kreider, who's also, I believe, doing very well, living in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He has a podcast called Cardboards and Caffeine and Cardboard. It's a board games podcast. Go listen to it. It's actually pretty good. But Connor Kreider was the one who was dead in the casket. I think it was Connor's family. Maybe it was Kyle Pratt. I don't know. But they're all like actually weeping and crying and all that stuff. And then the best part, because they had to record this in advance, they play voiceover in the auditorium. It's the voice of the dead kid. Who's like, am I dead? Oh my God. I wish I didn't drink before leaving prom.
And then Winona Ryder comes up and says, technically, I didn't kill you.
Right. And so
This feels very on point.
And then the lights all go black again, and then the scrim goes back up, and then the whole spotlights come up, and it's the whole cast of the show, and they take a bow or whatever. Like, it's a whole ass production.
Jesus.
And then, like, the DARE speaker, whoever the fuck comes out. Maybe it was a principal, and they're like, we show you this whole production to show you the value, blah, 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 blah. We don't want people getting in bad trouble or dying and whatever. Have fun at prom.
Yeah, Jeff, what did your Catholic school do?
We didn't do anything.
Yeah.
We never did this.
My God. It was a full-scale production,
Yeah,
though.
that's
Like,
wild.
they
That's
put
crazy.
money into it.
I never experienced
I think it was
anything
actually a
like
federal thing, too. I
Yeah.
think schools get federal subsidizing to do that. No joke. I
That makes
I
sense
really
for
do
a
think
public
that's
school.
a thing. Yeah, yeah.
I wonder how much Grim Reaper Day cost. this tiny Wisconsin town.
It cost a soul.
I want to say, because obviously the students and the students' families who are all the actors were free, but like getting the police to come in, bring all the cars and all that
Not
stuff.
cheap.
I bet it was like probably not that expensive though, because it's local,
Yeah.
small town, Huntington, Indiana. So
It's a traveling show to
$8,000.
traumatize kids.
$8,000.
Yeah, that
That's
makes
what I think
sense.
how much it costs.
So Heather's dead.
Heather's dead.
They frame it as a suicide, that she's committing suicide because nobody understood her and how deep she really was and all the problems she was going through.
Yeah, that she was very popular, but at the very in her core, very sad and depressed.
After the teachers all meet, I think we just go to the funeral.
Yeah.
Where it becomes very apparent to Winona that Heather is now more popular in death than she was in life.
Yeah, she's become like a martyr symbol or whatever.
That's someone who even, her best friends would like kind of still regard as a shallow, powerful person. Everyone that now prescribes her depth.
And the pastor comes up and starts saying his...
Yeah, the pastor is Otho from Beetlejuice, which really threw me off.
Glenn Shaddix is
Glenn
the name.
Shaddix.
Do you know the name that he's billed in as? Like, what his actual name in the character name in the movie?
No.
Father Ripper.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Father Ripper.
He's like,
kind of cool.
she's suffered deeply in life through all of her problems.
But now she's in God's hands now.
And Veronica,
Little
and
angel.
we do get a fun sequence of everybody kind of coming up and sitting at the casket and kind of speaking to her.
Yeah.
We read their minds.
God, why'd you have to take a snack? That was a joke.
And there's the one guy who's just like, she was hot.
Yeah.
The other, her mom.
The Green Heather.
Yeah. What does the Green Heather say?
She's kind of like, she also wished that Heather Chandler would die too.
Yeah.
She goes, I just didn't think, I guess you listened to me, God. She thanks God for
Yeah.
listening to her prayer to kill Heather Chandler.
And it's just a way of showing how everybody makes the death of this girl about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the fake suicide, they blame the community. She blames the community for her death.
Mm.
And the alls just kind of take that as like, well, I wasn't the problem. I wasn't the part of it. I'm going to make this about me. And Veronica's just very much sees through this facade that's happening.
Yeah.
And goes further and further into JD's orbit with this. Things move very quick from this point on in this movie.
Yeah.
Because she is invited by one of the other Heathers, the yellow one, to go out on a double date that night with two football players.
Oh, cow tipping.
Yeah, they go cow tipping and get shit splashed all over them. Once again, a football player tries to sleep with Winona, and she storms off.
Yeah, that scene, like that shot from pretty much up on the hill, and the yellow Heather is essentially being raped.
Mm.
Like that. Oh man, that scene kind of like bothers me. All the comedy's kind of ripped out of that scene.
Yeah.
It was really hard to watch because, yeah, you're right. And one note, it's like I know like the filmmaker's trying to make a point of this whole thing by very carefully placing this rape scene happening in the background of an OTS shot on Winona.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
It's but like even knowing that, I'm still not quite like justifying like but I don't know. It's still a little bit. That's a little bit gnarly.
It's an upsetting scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she gets out of there and runs into JD, who's at the top of the hill, backlit by this massive blue light.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that blue light.
He's like, you need a ride? You need to get out of here?
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
We've been out of work for so long. Something I really miss. I miss the fucking Condor night scene lighting. Don't you guys just like...
On
There's something
sets.
a little bit magical about like Condors that are like 2 city blocks away from you, lifted like 600 feet in the air, blasting massive amounts of like blue light. Just comes out of nowhere.
Very obvious there's not an electric in the room with us
Yeah.
today, but
I do
agree.
miss
It's
I
fun.
missed that. A little vibe there.
It's a good look.
Hopefully we'll see that again
Yeah,
soon.
we'll see that very soon, actually.
Yeah.
So she goes off with JD, and they decide they're going to get back at the two football players,
Mm-hmm.
but for attempting to rape Veronica and successfully raping the other Heather.
Yeah.
Well, they decide they're going to get back at them, but then it hits into overdrive the next day because Veronica comes to school and finds out that one of the football player who didn't succeed at getting her has been spreading the rumor that she sucked his dick the previous night, and is like telling everybody like, Veronica Sawyer like sucked my dick.
Yeah.
And so she goes to JD and is like, what are we going to do? And he's like, well, scare him with the little tranquilizer bullets.
Yeah, they're wooden bullets from Germany in World War II, which is a real thing that they did. So it's like, yeah, they're made of wood, so they don't like penetrate fully through the body. They'll stop. They're meant to hurt you, not kill you.
Mm. He describes it as a tranquilizer bullet that'll spray red paint, but just knock them out.
Is it tranquilizer bullet?
He says tranquilizer that will just break the skin enough.
Because he mentions his grandfather's like World War II.
Yeah,
gun.
he says they're World War II bullets.
Okay.
Which is just
for,
tranquilizer.
Like, espionage.
Oh,
something.
interesting.
It's like clearly just bullshit he's coming up with.
Yeah.
Like he's just making up a complete facade to kind of sell her the authenticity of this.
Because I thought he was saying like, because in real Germans did have like the World War wooden bullets meant to injure in World War II. That's what I thought they were doing. Okay.
It's like some variety of that.
Yeah. So and then he's gonna say something like that. You're gonna lure them out there. You're gonna write them a note or something to say like, hey, if you guys want to do all those things you said you did to me, come meet me out in the woods or something like that. So then they all meet her there, and they're like, so are we just gonna get right into it? And it's like, yeah, just you stand here, and strip. It's like, well, what about you? It's like, well, I want you to rip all my clothes off of me. So they're like, ho, 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 ho. And they start stripping, and then
JD pops out, shoots one of them.
He's dead. He drops.
Yeah.
And Winona's like laughing because she thinks he just got knocked out. This was actually kind of upsetting.
Yeah.
Because she's selling it so well of like, oh, I know he's not dead. He. And then pulls out a gun and misses the other guy. And then he runs away in fear, and she's laughing about it. She's like, JD's like, you let him go? It's like, it's fine. He got the message. And then JD starts Terminator 2 sprinting after him. I low-key thought it was going to be like Neo the Matrix with his trench coat. He was just going to start floating and chasing after him.
Yeah, that's when we get the best part of the Heather score, which is that 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God.
That like synth marching sound kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he makes it back up to him and shoots him. Does he shoot him in the back or no?
Yeah, she shoots him. He guides her up to her, and Winona pulls her gun out and shoots him.
Because somehow either the guy who was running didn't come back to her. She chased after.
Well, no, JD successfully chases him in a circle back to the spot.
Got him.
And Winona at this point realizes they're real guns. And she still chooses to shoot the other kid, the other guy.
Out of fear, kind of like trapped.
Out of fear that she's going to be revealed as a murderer.
Yeah.
And so she shoots him, and JD pulls out his little bag that he had brought. For
mineral water.
Mineral water.
Which has mineral water, gay porn, and some others, and a note.
Mascara, a couple other things.
And they stage it as like it was two guys having sex, and then they killed each other.
Yeah. Out of their repressed
homosexuality.
Yeah.
Quarterback buggering a linebacker. Yeah. What a waste.
And then we get my favorite joke in the movie, which is we cut to two cops who are just sitting in the car and they're eating sandwiches. And one of them's like, I think I just heard a gunshot. And the other guy just goes, oh shit, let's roll. Slams the car on and zooms out of there. I don't know why. Just the way he just yells that really gets, oh shit, let's roll.
And it's funny because JD plants this like, and it's not great, but he plants this stuff to make it seem like it was a suicide pact between two gay lovers. Yeah. And the cops fall for it, hook, line, and sinker. And it's like, oh, the mineral water is like, anybody drinks mineral water. The cops are like, mineral water.
They're like, they're gay.
It's like, well,
the case is cracked.
It's like, we don't have to do any more investigating. I know what happened here.
I love my dead gay son.
Yeah.
So it goes right to their funeral, where Otho is once again presenting.
Is that where the frame starts upside down and turns around?
I think it does that for the dream one.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And so we go to the funeral of the two guys, and it's so fun. It's so terrible. But they're in football. They're in their full football gear with the helmets.
Oh my god!
And one of their dads is up there.
I feel like they're trying to preserve their masculinity.
Yeah. They're preserving the masculinity, but also just like that is a high school thing that they buried them with their football gear. Like that's the image of the high school. Mm. And the dad's up there, and he's just like, my son. I guess I didn't know him that well, but I tell you, I still love him no matter what. I love my dead gay son.
Oh my god.
This movie is deeply sad, even if it is really funny.
It's a hard one to like
classify.
Recommend.
Yeah. Like this movie's really just like about how sad being a teenager at this time is.
Yeah.
How alienating
Or in general,
it is.
really.
Yeah.
I think the message still rings true, if not more so these days, albeit the subject material being a lot harder to swallow.
Yeah. How
Rightfully
alienating your
so.
life is, and how everyone will assign importance to you when you don't have any say in the matter.
Like, I was going to bring up Euphoria in some sense of like, but that takes it to such a serious subject matter rather than like putting it in like a weird kind of black comedy
Satire.
light. Yeah, satire.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's almost like I don't even think it's a really fair comparison to make. Like, I can't think of anything that like takes something like this type of subject matter and in the same sort of black comedy light in a satirical way today.
We also had this thought about how because I said during the movie, I'm like, man, I wonder if people like me looking on Heathers, and I was thinking more in terms of like what they were wearing, because I always find that interesting, especially with the 80s, that people would maybe look at Euphoria and assume our generation dressed that way or acted that way or did those things. And I don't think Euphoria advertises itself as a satire enough.
Yeah.
Nor do I even believe it really is a satire, especially after a while.
Because Euphoria came out in what year? And I was like, I was
17, 18?
I was well out of high school at that point in time. And so like, I'm looking back at this and I'm like, did high school change that drastically from the years I left and when this happened? And granted, I know it's like, that's in California too, LA, probably different culture maybe, I don't know, but like,
well, the thing about Euphoria is that it came out in 2019. It's written by Sam Levinson, who is let me look at how old he is. He's 38 years old. True.
But how old's the writer of this movie? Like,
Daniel Waters?
Yeah, he would have been like 25.
Daniel Waters?
Yeah, he would have been 25 writing this movie.
Wow.
Maybe there's something to say that I feel like this is a movie where most of the cast are in their teens, whereas a lot of the people in the cast of Euphoria are in their like 20s or just right after 18. To my understanding from a season 1, none of them were actual high school age.
Yeah. Well, that's because they needed them to be.
You know what I think could be like the best possible, but it's still not even in the serious subject matter of this? Sex education, maybe. I think that's one that like it deals with like the dynamics of high school. Granted, it is like British, so probably different cultural things happening there as well. But that's one that takes like sex as a subject matter, both in the sense of like just the culturalness surrounding it, but also like sort of the toxic nature of it when people are that age, both from within school and outside of school, that they kind of use to spin it on like a subject matter.
I mean, I do think Euphoria kind of fits into it.
Yeah.
Euphoria is like, the first season is fine. The second season, I don't really like that much, but it is very much a satire. That second season is like so much a satire to the extent that like they write a play about
the first season.
Yeah, about the first season.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think it's very well written because I think Sam Levinson's a hack, but
Tell us how you really feel.
Agreed.
It's really thrilling that his other show got canceled. I'm cheering.
What was this other show?
It was The Idol. It was the one with The Weeknd delivering some of the worst acting you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah,
And
I did hear about that.
The show is just, I don't even want to talk about it.
All the stories from behind the scenes of both The Idol and Euphoria have all been bad. There's very few good behind the scenes stories that come out of those shows.
I'm uneducated. I don't know what the behind the scenes stories are.
Just Sam Levinson's very like, I don't want to say abusive to the cast necessarily, but
Everyone
like
agrees to do what they're doing.
Yeah, everyone agrees to do what they're doing, but it's just like really long hours, really punishing work for the cast. The actress Barbie Ferreira, who played I'm forgetting the character's name, Kat, like the girl who struggles with her weight in the show. Removed herself from the show because she felt like kind of bullied by Sam Levinson to do like nude scenes and stuff like that.
So much nudity when it didn't need to be. And if the actresses were like, why is my top off in this scene if I'm just talking to my boyfriend or what have you? And it was a lot of just like, shut up and do what you're doing.
That's bad.
No, it's not great.
It's not a good thing.
No.
Not ideal.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, regardless of that, I think Heathers is a much more nuanced take on the
so much
subject.
more, yeah.
And that's, I guess, my ultimate point is I can't pinpoint anything that could be told
in the
to
same
be
vein.
Yeah, like something that's been replicated as closely as it can be to Heathers today.
I've heard Pen 15 is really good.
Yeah.
Penis.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff.
I just had to say it.
Can you say it in the Christian Slater voice?
Penis.
I love it. Was the build up to it? You had to go.
He was getting into it.
But essentially, the two football players become martyrs to homophobia.
Yes.
No, my God.
Which is
They're
the
more
exact
popular
wording
than
off
ever.
of the Wikipedia, and I love. And so Veronica breaks up with JD because she doesn't think his way is working. Because now it's just making all these people who they were trying to get at more popular.
And JD, to my impression, he's kind of like loving it regardless.
Yeah.
Because he knows this is the reaction. He's gardening this reaction regardless. Veronica thinks the opposite is going to happen. Not that she's supported the killings necessarily, but JD eating it all up.
She wants to destroy their reputations. He knows that they're dead. And they're dead and that no one else can.
Because it's not a smart take.
Yeah.
For JD's side.
No.
JD's side, it's like, to get the better up on them, we'll just kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to blow the lid off of society.
Which is not an intelligent take besides like what Veronica wants to do. Like she wants to actually like topple down like the reputations and make them seem for who they are. And that they're not accomplishing that.
Yeah,
And
she
like-
wants to liberate the oppressed people in the school, including herself.
JD as like he is a deeply insecure character who is worried about like being seen as insecure and having no depth because he doesn't have any.
Yeah.
He just read Catcher in the Rye once.
Yeah.
That's his whole thing. Is like
Yeah.
Moby
and so he wants to make the world and himself and his image is like this place of insane depth and deepness and thought to it.
Yeah.
Through his end goal, which is to blow up the school.
Mm-hmm.
He gets that method by recruiting Green Heather to essentially get a petition signed that they say is for various reasons, including putting a hot tub in the cafeteria.
Kind of pulling her own game against
Yeah.
her. Or utilizing what she claims to be good at.
Yeah, is getting people to sign things.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, it's a mass suicide note underneath all the like various layers.
Yeah.
That everyone thinks like we're killing ourselves and blowing up our school to show that we all are protesting.
Society doesn't care about
Society
us.
doesn't care about us and will just ascribe their own meanings to us.
Yeah.
Veronica starts figuring out about this scheme. She starts putting the pieces together slowly but surely. Meanwhile, Martha tries to commit suicide on her own, removed from JD and Veronica's machinations. She tries to kill herself with a note because she feels like nobody likes her and wants to be loved. And she thinks the only way to be loved is to be dead. She survives the suicide attempt, thankfully.
Yeah.
And instead
It's a
gets
dark
more
turn in the
bullied.
movie.
Yeah.
It's not presented in the same tonality as any other death.
It's not presented as a funny thing that she does. It's like how deep this has gotten that like a character who actually feels isolated now thinks because of what JD's done that the best way to be loved is to be dead.
Yeah.
Because then people will like her.
And that's where Veronica kind of snaps because she was responsible for the letter that got Martha, laughed at in the cafeteria at the head of the movie. She starts to see her own actions. She can't blame anybody else now but herself.
Except herself. And she puts herself in a shower and like screams and whatnot. She goes, there's a bit where she saves Yellow Heather from her own suicide attempt. Because they had spread a rumor about her.
Oh, with the pills and
Yeah. She tries to, cause she was on a radio, she phoned into a radio show that Green Heather heard and started spreading what she said on it around. So she tries to kill herself with sleeping pills. Veronica stops her from doing it, realizing that her role within the school now is to put an end to this.
Yeah.
I had to pause when the Yellow Heather is trying to get the cap off of the pill bottle and goes, damn these child locks. And it's like, these are kids.
Yeah.
These are this shouldn't be a thing. It actually went the lovey-dovey teacher at the end. It was just like, suicide is the biggest decision a teenager can make.
Trying to like
such a weird way to phrase that.
Putting that like accepting people's choices language onto suicide, which is something that comes out of deep desperation.
Yeah. These are kids.
Yeah.
I actually get really sad by the line when she's like, damn these child locks, and she's literally trying to down pills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's where the tonality of Heather's can be a little bit hard to swallow for some people. I can toe that line because I know what it's doing. It's not hard to know.
Yeah.
It's not hard to know. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm saying, but that's a hard one for me.
And it's a rough scene. And then Veronica goes home, and her parents tell her that JD stopped by and said that he was worried that she'd try and kill herself.
Yeah, he told us to be nervous of sharp objects, garage doors, prescription drugs.
And the parents just start
Ridiculous.
rambling off all these things as she walks away and up the stairs, and they're still listing off the things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oblivious.
But she realizes that JD is going to try and kill her.
Yeah.
And so she fakes her own suicide.
Yeah. Like a fake hanging.
Yeah. There's a dream sequence where she attends a funeral for, I think it's Green Heather?
Green Heather.
Yeah.
Green Heather, and everyone's like, Martha.
She thinks she's. I actually think Veronica thinks that she's the next subject, not her.
Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah.
Well, because she fakes
She's
her
trying
own.
to say Green Heather.
What's this?
I'm pretty sure at that point she believes that JD's going after the Green Heather because she's
And
been a
not
pawn
her.
for him.
Well, I think because he told her parents to be nervous about her committing suicide. That's when she realizes, oh, JD's coming to my house tonight to kill me, and that's why she fakes her suicide. And then when JD shows
Right.
up,
Because he does show up with like. A
I
knife
I
or
suppose the
something.
sequence is her
Yeah.
her death first, and then she's like, "All right, now that he knows that he's killed me, I can save the
Yeah.
Green Heather." Okay, yeah.
because he's like, I didn't think you'd actually do it. I'm a little upset. I mean, I came here to kill you, but
That's right.
he's like really doing Jack in this scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough.
So
But-
then,
Oh, and she knows that the Green Heather's the next target because he picks up her copy of Moby Dick.
Yeah, he picks up her copy of Moby Dick, and then he starts explaining his plan to her quote unquote dead body,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and being like, yeah, I'm gonna blow up the school tomorrow. Got all this TNT from my dad.
Because as we said, it's like his dad is
Demolitions man.
demolitions man. He knows how to like set buildings ablaze by using a bomb at the base with like heat signature things at the top, and it just all crumbles down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the screwed up story that his mom committed suicide via his dad's demolition.
Yeah.
And that the last thing he saw was his mom waving to him as the building collapsed. This is dark.
Yeah.
That is dark.
Really dark.
And he's just deeply depressed and also wants to be dead.
Yeah. Because he doesn't feel loved.
And so he goes back to this. He leaves and goes to the school. Heather's mom, or Veronica's mom, opens the door. And I really like this scene because the mom sees Veronica hanging there, and immediately just like all the facade drops, and the only thing she can process is like just an apology for the last thing she told Heather,
Yeah.
or that she had said to Veronica that might have upset her.
Yeah.
Which is ignoring the biggest issue.
Yeah.
She thinks, oh, Veronica committed suicide because I wouldn't let her have the job at the mall.
Right.
It's like, bitch,
Right.
no.
She's not even seeing
Yeah.
like any of the other possibilities
Yeah.
that matter, actually. But then Veronica like wakes up and she's like, "Oh, hi!" And then she opens up her jacket and you see it's like tied around her waist,
Yeah.
essentially. So she lets herself down, and I think she just has to run to the school.
Yeah, she's like, "Mom, are we having spaghetti?"
yeah,
Because the next morning she goes back to the school.
yeah, and
Sometime around this point, I do want to point out that her parents call her Little Miss Voice of a Generation.
Yeah.
And it is funny because Winona kind of does become the voice of the generation
yeah.
after all this.
But then she goes to school and everybody's leaving class to go to the gym, and
Yeah.
she's like, "Wait, what's going on with the pep rally?" It's like, oh well, they're doing a whole thing for the suicides that have been happening, and it's like, so nobody's gonna be in the classroom, they're all gonna be in the gym. And it's like, wait a minute, what's under the gym? And he looks at her like, the boiler room. Like the delivery of that is so like keen, and he's like, the boiler room.
Yeah.
And so she's like, oh shit.
Well, didn't his dad admit to having a Russian in the boiler room that he planted before he demolished a building? Like I think he straight up admits killing a guy. Am I crazy? His dad.
Oh,
JD's
yeah,
dad.
yeah. I think I
He
remember.
said,
It was
I
it was
had a
very,
Russian in the boiler room.
It was a very throwaway line
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
like,
Well, his
just
dad
some-
is unhinged.
right,
Yeah.
very unhinged. So she runs downstairs into the boiler room where she sees,
And she has his gun.
and she has his gun.
I don't remember how she acquired his
Yeah,
gun.
I don't remember how she got that either.
But she runs down with his gun and tries to stop him. He manages to overpower her and make it into the boiler room.
Yeah.
But she gets back up and goes after him again. And we get like a little cat and mouse game in the boiler room between the two of them, which does end with her successfully shooting him.
Yeah.
And the bomb gets disabled because he stabs a knife into it by accident.
Was it by accident? Because she was looking at like the buttons and she's like, which button to press? It's like, society doesn't care about us. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, which button is it?
Yeah.
Is it the middle button? It's like, it's the middle button. And then he stabs it.
Yeah.
But so I couldn't tell if that was him.
I think
it
he tried to.
purposefully
I
or
couldn't
he was trying
tell.
to set it off. It was hard to tell.
Because she leaves him there and goes and walks outside.
Yeah.
And then he follows her out, like very shuffling. He's bleeding out.
Yeah.
Bleeding out, Scoob.
Bleeding out, Scoob.
And he has the bomb strapped to his chest.
Yeah.
And he's kind of backs up and steps into the street. And he says to her, "Pretend I did blow up the school."
Yeah.
Kind of like he wants to be remembered for his acts.
Yeah.
Because he has nothing else to live for.
Mm-hmm.
And her only response is she puts a cigarette in her mouth. And then as he blows up and commits suicide, the explosion lights her cigarette.
Yeah.
And this is Winona's favorite image of herself in a movie.
Yeah.
To this day, she said, "This is my favorite shot of myself in a movie: is the bomb lighting the cigarette, just standing on the steps."
I struggle to say I love it, but I love it because originally she like purposefully burned her hand with the cigarette lighter from the car after the two football players, and JD lights his cigarette on it.
Yeah.
He's using her pain. He's using her, and ultimately she takes it back.
Yeah,
Right.
that's great. That's a good read. I didn't even think of that.
I kind of thought that was like very pointed,
Yeah.
like very intentional.
Then now she's taking the pain back from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good shit.
And she now, the bomb explodes. She like is fully like has ash all over her face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone's running out of the school, and she's walking inside. People are like, "You look like shit." And she's like, "Yep." She kisses
New
one of the other
sheriff in
Heathers,
town.
rips their hair
Ribbon.
ribbon off, puts it on, and is basically declaring herself that like, after all this, I am gonna run this school now with kindness.
Yeah.
Because that is the only path forward, is just to understand and talk to each other.
Yeah.
She's gonna decrown the Heather.
Yeah.
And
she goes. First thing she does is she walks up to Martha and asks her, "Hey, my date to the prom flaked. Do you want to watch some movies?" And Martha
pop some popcorn.
Yeah, pop some popcorn. That was good.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, and she asked Martha, "Do you want to pop some popcorn and watch a movie?" And Martha says her first line of the movie, "I'd like that." Because Winona's realized that you just have to talk to people, and that's how you can make things better. It's just by having a conversation.
A little simplistic. We'll maybe not give the movie that, but
And that movie protected the country from ever having a school shooting ever again.
yeah.
Well, the thing is, so that's the end of the movie. The thing is, that's not the scripted end of the movie.
Correct.
Ooh,
In
do
the
tell.
script, JD succeeds.
Yeah.
The
he
school is blown up.
successfully blows up.
And the
school.
end of the movie is them all in heaven at a prom.
No.
At a prom in heaven. I don't quite know specifically what it entails, but that is how the movie ended originally.
Yeah.
And the New Line, or whatever studio funded this, New World Pictures, refused to film the movie unless the ending was changed.
Yeah.
It was put into this more optimistic ending,
Yeah.
which I think makes the movie better.
Oh,
I
it
agree.
It ties everything with a Heather bow.
And that's why I think
Can I say?
Yeah.
that it's kind of an accidental masterpiece. Like all these things just kind of shuffled together in the way that movies sometimes do.
Yeah.
Because I like the idea that the ending is just like, if we have conversations,
Yeah.
that's the first step to any of this. It's just listening to what this person has to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for all of its dark humor and kind of tough stuff, the movie is at the end of the day an optimistic tale.
Yeah.
I do, however, if someone were to come up to me and say that Heather's is a completely tone deaf satire, I would also agree with them.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is like it's a much bigger conversation. Just goes to show how nuanced the topic is, but how nuanced the film is. But if someone really has trouble watching this movie, I will never tell them that, they just didn't understand or the message is there. You just gotta, I would never say that about Heathers. I think the topic It goes to show that this movie could not be made today because the tonality of it is just wrong. I might go
People would
as
get
far
really
as to say
mad
wrong.
about this movie
Yeah.
if it came out today.
Yeah.
It would be very rough.
Yeah. And that's why I'm kind of glad that it came out when it did. I'm glad we have this movie that's willing to kind of have this conversation in the way that it does. People in the 80s weren't as thrilled, though, because this movie comes out.
No.
Big flop. Movie makes parents refuse to take their kids to go see this movie.
Well, it is rated R, right?
It is rated R, yes.
Yeah.
But it makes $1.1 million on a $3 million budget, which is very, very small. But it quickly does find its fan base.
Say it's cult following.
I was going to say cult classic to end all cult classics, in my opinion.
It's a hugely successful cult classic. DVDs and Blu-rays, extremely... they sell very well. And it starts developing a reputation within just mere years of it coming out.
Yeah.
Winona always talks about it as one of her favorite roles, if not her favorite. And just every year that it comes out, this movie takes on new poignancy and develops more fans.
Yeah.
Critics were overwhelmingly pretty positive on this movie. Well, nowadays they are. At the time, there were a lot of critics who were like, this is so tone deaf. I can't believe this. This is an evil movie. Roger Ebert was just like, I don't get it, but I think teenagers will really find something in this.
That's interesting.
Yeah. He's like, I don't understand this movie, but it's for the teenagers, and I'm going to give it a positive review because I think that they'll really understand what this movie's trying to say to them.
Yeah.
And maybe that is the point.
Yeah.
Maybe the adults who actually put this movie together knew that. You know?
Yeah.
That it wasn't supposed to be a dare message or a Grim Reaper Day in the middle of Wisconsin. Like, it's something, it's so different.
Right.
So much different than
it's a
that.
movie made for the teens and through the teen. I can't really say from the teen voice, but kinda.
Yeah, because Stuart, how much do you think your pep rally, traumatic pep rally, actually prevented students from drunk driving? Yeah,
not at all.
We had severe instances in near-death experiences in the immediate 2 years preceding my Grim Reaper Day.
There's always a couple DUIs at Huntington North High School every prom. I'm sure of it. And
We're the drunkest state in the nation. Are you telling me that these kids are not going to drunk drive?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, these whole messages catered by adults that think that will ring true to the kids. Like, it's the joke. That's been the joke. It's been like the DARE conferences or the pep rally lectures. It's like it's all those things where it's like you're forced to go to this thing and you all roll your eyes as the adults think they know what they're actually talking about.
The punchline is the parents.
The punchline's the parents, the adults, the teachers. It's all it is. And this is the only movie where it's like the movie points out that they are the punchline to it.
Yeah.
She couldn't even physically get the child lock cap off the prescription pills, and the parents are still going to blame the kids.
Because we talk about very common phrasing is like white savior movie. This movie is not an adult savior movie. It's a teen conflict handled by teens.
A very powerful movie, and nowadays it's very well respected. Has
Yeah.
a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes for retrospective reviews.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of academics talk about this movie. They cite it as like one of the preeminent pieces of the culture war narrative in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Ooh.
As society was shifting. This is also one of the most cited movies in the Oxford English Dictionary
What?
because it Daniel Waters didn't want it to use slang from the time period the movie came out. So it instead is just like kind of this timeless sense of slang that pulls from a lot of different periods. So all the characters talk very weird.
Yeah.
And so it's cited in the English dictionary for a lot of slang terms.
Wow.
I mean, I'm going to use the term mega bitch in my everyday lexicon at this point.
Yeah.
I actually was consistently writing quotes down through this movie. Like Jeff, like just a pure banger would come across somebody's dialogue, and Jeff and I both would look at each other, pull out our phones to write it down for the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, I have at least 20 quotes here. It's like, are we going to prom or hell? Was Winona's writing in her diary, and she's finally come to terms with everything that's going on. Or they say Martha, who cares if Martha tried to kill herself? She's had suicide hotlines in her diapers.
My God.
awful line.
Yeah.
That just really, I wrote that down because of just how awful it is, you know?
But
It's
true.
pointed. It's pointed.
It's pointed. It's true. And it's a shame that Daniel Waters not really working much anymore.
I want to see his other movies because if it's just Batman Returns and Heathers, I want to see what other unhinged shit he has pulled out.
Right. Yeah.
I know he got the Razzie, but...
And so this movie does it doesn't ever get a sequel, but they did make a musical based off this movie, and they made a TV show that came out in 2016.
That's right. They did.
Oh.
The musical, I remember being well received.
Well received. Yeah, the musical got really good reviews.
It aired for a few years. I'm trying to see if it got nominated for any Tonys. I don't think it did. It did not get nominated for any Tonys.
Oh, wow.
But it also has a high school version that you can like rent for your high school.
I don't know how you can do that.
I'm not quite sure how that works.
What's the Kids Bop version of Heathers? Tell me.
The television show comes out and gets canceled extremely quickly. They actually had to push the premiere of the show because there was an actual school shooting the day that they were going to put it out.
Wow.
And then it got panned by critics who called it very Trump-esque.
Oh, plot twist.
I think it's very much like anti-social justice warrior about snowflakes. That seems to be the vibe that I was getting from it.
Yeah.
That essentially that like liberal and progressive ideology is what's alienating kids in high schools, which is a very wild read on this movie.
Yeah.
I will never watch the TV show, but I did. It was worth talking about. And that's basically the post-text of the movie itself. In regards to Winona, it doesn't really do anything for her public image besides, as she describes it, her first like adult role.
Mm-hmm.
So to her as an actress, it's very effective and powerful.
Yeah.
It gives her it fills her with a lot of confidence to go to more auditions and take on roles that aren't just like being the kid.
Yeah.
Or the love interest.
Yeah.
She feels empowered by this role, which I think is very important.
Yeah.
Trying to see if I have anything else written down. Britain loved this movie. It got really rave reviews in the UK. It's just a random.
When it was first released?
Yeah, when it was first released. I don't know why the British were really into it. They just like laughing at America.
British humor is different from American humor.
Very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
All right, but that's all I have for Heathers. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
I feel like we've kind of said everything we could say about it. Yeah.
This is definitively my favorite Winona, but I will be watching more with you, Jeff, as you keep
That's
moving
a little
forward.
disrespectful to Homefront.
I find Beetlejuice to be tired after a while. Still love it. Still love it. And Edward Scissorhands is just long enough for me to like really lose interest. Heathers locked in the entire time.
I'm
James Franco.
excited to watch Homefront.
Oh boy.
Jason Statham versus James Franco, the duo you've been waiting for.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that'll be later.
Yeah. Stuart, any final thoughts?
Nope. I think I got about everything I needed to say.
Well, then I will say thank you to everyone for listening to this episode on Heathers. Next week, we'll be taking a brief break from Winona and doing our annual Christmas spectacular for you folks. That's right, a very Travolting Christmas 3 will be coming out next Wednesday. We hope you enjoy. It has a much sweatier subtitle that we will not be saying now because we want you to experience it live on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or YouTube next week, where you should also like, review, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. As a reminder, you can follow us at TravoltingPod on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads, or BlueSky. Find me on Twitter at Jeff W. Sweeney. Anything you guys want to plug?
I'm on Instagram. You know where it is.
Yeah, you know me too.
Special thanks, as always, to Rebecca Sweeney for our graphic design, live in studio right now, and Michael Van Bodegum Smith for the incredible theme music that's now taking you out. Have a great week, folks. See you next week for a very Travolting Christmas. Ho, ho, ho!